Look, I want to say we're here in a moment of quite a crossroads for this reason. As Democrats, we're going to win in November. We're going to win in November. We're going to win. But the crossroads is this, folks. As a nation and as a state, we are broken. We are broken as a people. We are broken, and we know it. The opportunity for Democrats is not just because of our strength, but it's because of an environment in which people across the country and across the state know that we need to be better than who we are right now. That is bigger than politics. My wife and I say this all the time. Part of this campaign, part of all of it for Democratic candidates, is that together we need to believe in better. Believe we are better than this moment, and believe that better days are here. Not just with the economy, not just with affordability, but as a culture and as a community, as a state and a nation, we have to believe in something better than this moment. So yes, I am running for governor, and I believe as Democrats, I appreciate that, but you don't know what else I'm going to say. I believe as Democrats, the moment to win is here. I want to do a couple things tonight before we get to question and answers. I want to share a little bit more of my introduction about who I am. I also want to share about the values of this campaign, values that I believe are rooted in Democratic tradition, but so much bigger than our party. Values that are big enough to tether together a coalition led by Democrats, but strong enough to bring in our independent and Republican friends who we need tonight. We need tonight. To the independents and Republicans in the room tonight, I'm not going to ask you to identify yourself. I just want to say thank you. I'm serious. Thank you. Because as Democrats, we need you. We need you. I'm going to share a little bit finally about how we win, because we are going to win in November. By we, I mean all of us. This state's going to win. But let me make a little bit more of an introduction. As already introduced, I'm here with my beautiful, lovely, incredible wife and life partner, Laura Jolly. Together, Laura and I have 2 children, 6 and 4. 6 and 4, yeah, you can say wow. I'm 53, folks, I'm 53. I'm 53. And they're 6 and 4, and every day's a Monday at our house. But it's incredible, obviously, the joy of our lives, but also part of what motivates us in this moment. You see, I was born in Clearwater, the Clearwater-St. Pete area. I lived down here in Miami, the Westchester area, over by Tropical Park for 10 or 12 years, grew up here a bit. Lived in Pasco County, in the middle of the state where I graduated from high school. I also lived in Pensacola. I've lived all over the state, and I'm a 5th-generation Floridian. Doesn't make me a lick better than someone who moved here yesterday. But with all of that background in the state, sure, Laura and I sometimes ask ourselves, should we raise our kids in the state of Florida? Because that is a real lived experience for us with our children. You don't need to have kids or grandkids to be asking yourself the same question. We're a state that is gripped by an economic crisis for more than half of the state, and we're exhausted by culture wars. We're at the hands of government. We continue to see attacks on communities based on who they love, who they worship, the color of their skin, or where they were born. Yes, we have an economic crisis, but we have a crisis of culture wars that is breaking us. And so yes, for my wife and I, the responsible question we sometimes ask ourselves is whether we should raise our kids in this state. A little bit more of an introduction. My background's in law and finance and politics. I had the opportunity to serve in Congress for 2 terms from the Clearwater area. I was a Republican at the time. I apologize for those years. But I don't run from it. I don't run from it. Because change is part of my story. You see, I celebrate my change. In politics, sometimes we think reflexively, oh, that person used to believe something. Yes, but we should welcome the journey. We should welcome the journey. You see, mine was a moment where I began serving in Congress as a Republican, and I was taking votes that I didn't like the outcome of. And I could feel the dissonance, frankly, between teachings of my own faith and the constitutional requirements of serving in Congress. And so I began to move on some issues. That journey is the strength of our campaign. It's not a weakness. I don't think the problem in politics are people who change. I think it's people who won't change. We have gone through one of the most disruptive chapters in American political history right now in this decade. And if somebody hasn't felt an impulse to change, I think they might be the problem in today's politics, not those of us who have changed. So I celebrate my change, I sure do. The last thing I talk about, and please give me a little bit of grace on this, I know we all don't gather tonight with the same shared faith, but I acknowledge my faith on the trail. I speak about my faith on the trail, not to evangelize, not to ask others to share it, but it's part of my introduction. Because no personal introduction is complete of myself without speaking of Laura, of our kids, of where I was born, of where I've lived, of my professional background, and yes, my Christian faith. I was born in the home of a pastor and a minister's wife, and it was the greatest, richest blessing of my life to grow up under parents who taught me and led me into my own personal journey of faith. I speak of that faith often on the trail. I share that with you tonight not to evangelize, but to do a couple of things. One, I think regardless of what informs your own personal values, whether they're rooted in faith or what Thomas Jefferson merely declared as the very natural rights of man, we all believe that there is a certain personal dignity and there are rights that must be protected. And that is shared across all faith communities, or frankly those who identify as atheists or agnostics, who on most days are far more charitable than some of us who sit in church pews. But I also think in a state that launched culture wars 8 years ago, based on the foundations, I believe, of perversion of faith teachings, I think it's important we can have a candidate who speaks of their faith but also acknowledges that the governor's personal and private faith stops at the steps to the State House. It is what the Constitution requires. It is what the Constitution has ordained. And for people of faith, it does not dilute your faith to recognize that limitation. It strengthens your faith to do so. So yes, I speak of my faith. We are a nation tonight and a state that is facing, as I mentioned, I think, two great crises. We have an economic crisis, bigger than an affordability crisis. We have an economic crisis, and we're a state exhausted by culture wars. And together as Democrats, we are being given an opportunity to lead in this moment. But as Chef said, let's not get arrogant about this opportunity. For many Democrats, they are excited tonight to turn out and vote and to show up at the polls and to win elections. Many independents are saying, I can't go in the direction Republican leaders are taking us. I want to vote for a Democrat. But we've got Republicans saying, I'm willing to give you a shot. Understand, willing to give you a shot. They're not registering as Democrats tonight, but they're willing to give us their trust in this moment. How do we gain that trust? How do we earn that trust? How do we do something with that trust? First, I think it starts with recognizing the crisis we face. We do have an economic crisis, and we're a state exhausted by affordability, or exhausted by culture wars. I think there are three fundamental values, that we all share and should share in our politics, values that I think are rooted in Democratic Party tradition, but bigger than our party. Rooted in the traditions from FDR to JFK to Barack Obama and so many others. Values that are capable of allowing Democrats to build a coalition. First, the economy should work for everybody. The economy should work for everybody. Now, listen, we don't need to condemn success. We should congratulate success. We have a capitalist economy where people work hard and they pursue their own dreams and they create their own opportunities and they find success. Congratulations. Sometimes people get lucky. Congratulations. We don't need to fight the haves to fight for the have-nots. Because the truth is tonight, more than half of this state is suffering from an economic crisis. They do not have enough savings to last 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Half of this state tonight cannot absorb a healthcare crisis, cannot absorb a family crisis, a divorce, cannot absorb a lost job or a car repair. You see, the economy is doing very well for some people, but for half of the state it's not. We've lost upward mobility in this state. People are losing hope in this state. And where does it present itself? It presents itself on the ability to either buy a home or to stay in affordable or workforce housing or to be able to keep paying your rent month after month. It presents itself in access to health care. More families right now in the state of Florida going without health care than ever before. And yes, in a state that has abandoned and attacked public education and moved to a choice program with absolutely no rules, where schools get to charge families tuition on top of vouchers. People don't know where to educate their kids in the state of Florida tonight. The economy is not working for everybody, and it should. That's a critical principle. The second value, rooted in democratic tradition, but bigger than our party, is that government can help. Government can help. Listen, we shouldn't be afraid to defend the role of government. It's our government. We pay for it. It's our taxes. It should be lean and it should be efficient. It should be lean, it should be efficient. We should always look to the private sector first. To our faith-based communities, our nonprofits where they can solve problems for us, great. Let's go there first. But we know there are certain places in society and in culture where only government can step in and provide the services we need. What are a couple examples? How about investment in public education? Public education. Public education. Folks, we are a state that nearly 30 years ago decided to attack public education. We pay our teachers dead last in the nation, and it's a moral wrong. It's a moral wrong. In the nation's third largest state, we pay our teachers dead last in the nation, and our per pupil spending is 40th. Still today, the greatest access to excellence in education is in our public schools, because of the love and commitment and talents and expertise of our teachers and educators. But folks, they're doing this not with support of the state, but despite what the state is doing to them. We need a 10-year renaissance in public education in the state of Florida. We need to pay our teachers 30% more. 30% more. Move them towards the top half. Invest in failing infrastructure around the state. Create environments that Florida's families want to rush into. Because in a state that has abandoned public education but created choice, Florida's families are never going to race into a school that's underfunded, where teachers have a recruitment and retention problem, where the playground's a dusty field under an oak tree. They're going to race into the new construction, the smaller classrooms, the ballistic glass, the technology, and the ball fields. Of course they're going to do that. So let's have a 10-year renaissance in public education. I've actually proposed taking 10% of our tourist development tax dollars that come into the state every year and choose a renaissance in public education. Choose it. You see, the policies get easy once we become a state that says we want to lead the nation in public education. Right now, we're fighting for scraps in a state that has said we want to abandon public education. So let's make a different choice. Where else can government help us out? Access to health care. Access to health care. Folks, the private market, insurance-driven platforms for delivery of healthcare have become unattainable for too many people, and Washington's not going to figure this out in the next 5 or 10 years. We do need to be a state tonight that expands Medicaid. We should expand Medicaid. We are one of only 10 states that has it, and 15 years into this, guess what we've discovered? It improves the qualitative outcomes of beneficiaries, but it's an economic return to the state. So whether you want to lead with your heart that is helping families and individuals be healthier, or lead with your head that is just good math and economics, we should be a state that expands Medicaid. But after doing almost 200 town halls across the state, I think I have learned that this is a much bigger crisis than just using Medicaid expansion to solve it. I think we need to scale up federally qualified community health centers in all 67 counties. All 67 counties. Some of you may remember old school Florida, the county health clinics. Regardless of the ability to pay, you could walk in and receive primary health care services for you or your family. Listen, maybe it's a 5-year pilot program. Maybe we target it in 10 underserved counties to start out. Maybe we measure it. But listen, Medicaid expansion enough tonight is not going to do it. We need to get back to the direct delivery of primary health care services in more communities to improve people's health care and to reduce the cost burden to the state. That's an area where government can help. Access to housing, home ownership, affordable housing. Look, I think many homeowners are suffering from an insurance market in Florida that has collapsed and it's not coming back. If you're a homeowner tonight, I think we need a state catastrophic fund for hurricane coverage. Fully remove hurricane coverage from the private market. It will cut policies by 60 to 70%. 60 to 70%. My Republican friends call it socialism. I just call it cheaper insurance. And it works. Look, I think we do need property tax relief, but I'll tell you what Tallahassee's doing right now. I've been a Republican. Republican math never works out. Never works out. I remember John Boehner used to tell me, don't worry, in the next 30 to 40 years, it's going to work out. No, Mr. Speaker, it never did. It never did. But we should pursue, I think, first-time home buyer property tax relief. Many of us benefit from Save Our Homes and portability, good public policy, but now much of that taxable burden is borne by the first-time home buyer. They buy a home from a long-time homesteader, the property taxes jump by 300, 400, 500%. Let's be a party. I intend to be a candidate that talks about targeted property tax relief. It's not enough to just say no, no, no. We can say the math doesn't work, and Republicans' plan is to make local communities wards of the state. That if you're a good red community to Tallahassee, you'll get what you need, but if you're a blue community, they're going to withhold resources. But let's fight for property tax relief. We can do that. We talk about the housing crisis in the state of Florida, and we always think about homeowners, but the greatest presentation of crisis is within our rental community. Within our rental community. Folks, there are districts and precincts and communities in Pensacola, Florida tonight where the truancy rate in elementary schools continues to rise above all of the metrics that the state will tolerate. Why? Why? Not because the kids don't want to go to school, but because too many families are jumping rent month to month to month. Not worried first about where their kids are going to go to school, but first if they're going to have a roof over their head. Because too many people can't afford housing in the state of Florida. The good news is we have programs that work. We have 40-year tax agreements, public-private partnerships to allow more workforce and affordable housing. Let's scale it up. Make more units available to more people based on income or trades or proximity to work. We have pathways to home ownership. Palm Beach County and Riviera Beach have a 10-year mortgage product that they've totally forgive after 10 years of home ownership to try to allow people at a clip of $100,000 of a forgivable product to allow more Floridians to move from rental to home ownership. There are programs that we can pursue. Here's the thing, access to housing, to health care, to education for all. Republicans in Tallahassee could do that tonight, but they're not. They're not because they have chosen a view and a vision of Florida that is not about all of us. It's not about all of us. They are fine to make Florida a home for the rich and the reckless and nobody else, and I think it's wrong. It's wrong. So yes, the economy should work for everybody. Government can have a hand in improving our lives. And the final value I'll share with you tonight, again, rooted in Democratic Party tradition, but bigger than our party. And this leads us to this moment as a nation where we are being torn apart. We should be a state, we should be a nation, and I am a proud Florida Democrat tonight because I know we believe in a very simple truth. That absolutely everybody's rights should be protected and their dignity should be celebrated, regardless of the color of their skin, where they were born, who they love, or who they worship. Now understand, I say rights should be protected and dignity should be celebrated. Those are two different things, folks. Rights being protected, we have a playbook, we have a handbook, it's called the Constitution. We know how to fight for people's individual rights, and we should. We can go to the courts, we can work with the courts. Sometimes the courts get it right, sometimes they get it wrong, but over the long decades that pass, we move progress towards justice. We do that through the Democratic governor in the state of Florida. The culture wars are over. The culture wars end on day one. They end on day one. What does that mean? First, yes, we're going to fight to return the franchise and suffrage to too many people who have had it taken away or made harder. We're going to fight to undo the poll tax. The poll tax. That's what the voter integrity legislation is that just passed in Tallahassee. Making it harder for people to be able to vote by requiring them to pay for new IDs that they wouldn't otherwise have to have. And you know what's crazy about it? Our governor for the last 7 years has said Florida has the safest, most secure elections in the entire country. They're not fighting for voter integrity. They're not fighting for election security. They're fighting to make it harder for people to vote so fewer people vote, because Republicans know when more people vote this cycle, they're going to lose. It's a poll tax. It's a poll tax. So yes, we're going to fight for people's franchise and their suffrage, but what else does it look like to end the culture wars? I'll tell you this, let teachers teach. Bring back the books. Bring back the books. We're going to recognize all of history, not just the parts that the government wants to choose, but all of history. And that includes the darker chapters, because we will never recognize the darker chapters of our present if we don't learn the darker chapters of our past. Right. You see, we need to be a state where every student learns about the Rosewood Massacre. We need to be a state where everyone learns about Harry T. Moore and Mims. a civil rights pioneer who on Christmas Day was bombed in his home and murdered for registering voters of color. We need to recognize our failures. That includes when it comes to immigration as well. A nation who has attacked the immigrant more often than celebrated the immigrant. Listen, immigration policy is not hard to figure out once we win the debate over our values. Because we're not having a debate about immigration policy right now. We're having a debate over our values. Some tonight in America wish to take us back to a white nativist land. And others want to recognize and embrace and celebrate the economic and cultural contributions of our immigrant community. Because that is who we are, that is a strength of our nation. That is not a weakness. And so yes, ending the culture wars means recognizing the economic and cultural contributions of our immigrant community. Some of you may remember, as a kid here in 1980, the Mariel boat lift, we had all the Cuban refugees come ashore. And we had a moment much like we're seeing today. The Cuban refugees were rounded up and put in the Orange Bowl behind a chain link fence. And it was a real debate over values. And from the values then, what would our policies be? Bob Graham, Jimmy Carter, Mayor Ferre met. And in a moment where the people were waiting to hear what will we do next, Jimmy Carter and Bob Graham respectfully later got it right, but they blinked and they got out of town without a solution. Mayor Ferre went to the microphone and he said, if we are not willing to welcome the refugee, we might as well throw the Statue of Liberty into the East River. You see, that's not policies, that's values. The sonnet, the great Colossus, that is affixed to the Statue of Liberty that says, bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. The line before that says, keep, O distant lands, your storied pomp. Meaning old world nations, old Europe, keep your rich, your famous, your fabulous. Send me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. The next line, you're homeless, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Behold, I lift my lamp by the golden door. Culture wars have attacked communities across this state, and it's wrong, and we're going to put an end to it. Two other areas where we can end the culture wars immediately. This one seems pretty simple. I used to belong to a Republican Party that thought local control was the way to go. That local communities should be empowered to determine how to celebrate their own community and determine a way forward. Not anymore under Republicans. If they don't like what you're doing in your local community, they're coming into town saying, no, you're not allowed to do that. If a local community wants to paint a mural to celebrate Black Lives Matter or the LGBTQ plus community, God bless you, I'll buy you a can of paint. But Tallahassee did this last week in further attacking DEI. They are whitewashing under some legislative language. But let's be very specific about this. Tallahassee Republicans this week just passed a bill saying that if a local community celebrates a diverse community, that they can revoke funding or remove somebody from office. They didn't do that because the St. Patrick's Day parades have gotten too big. I can say this as a member of a white church. They didn't do it because the white Christian church picnics had gotten too big. They did it because communities are celebrating diversity. They're celebrating black and brown communities and our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters. And when they do that, they don't get to whitewash that. We have to step out with voices and condemn it because it's wrong. I'll tell you the last area where we get to fight the culture wars. I know this sounds crazy, but they've allowed culture, ideological fights, to replace science and data and public health and subject matter expertise. Because while they're chasing ideology, they're threatening communities across this state in ways we don't even see sometimes. You know what I get to do on my first day in office? I get to fire the Surgeon General of the state of Florida. Fire the Surgeon General. I get to find and nominate the next education commissioner who's going to get the backs. Get the backs of our students and our families and our teachers and our schools. We get to go to the state university system and find people willing to return to institutional autonomy and academic excellence, and yes, the impact of diversity in education environments. Get to go to the Public Service Commission and begin to find candidates who are willing to fight for clean and renewable energies, for clean air and clean water. And yes, get the back of consumers and ratepayers instead of our legacy utilities. There's so much we get to do when we say no more going down this road of pursuing these culture wars. We're going to return to adult leadership in this state that embraces subject matter expertise and invests in our institutions in a way that lift up every community. I realize I've gone on a little long. I apologize for that, but let me wrap this up with this. How do we win? How do we win? Because, folks, if we don't win this race, then this is just a prayer meeting tonight. We gotta win. We gotta win. We gotta win this cycle. Here's the good news. Here's the good news. More Democrats are turning out than ever before. More Democrats are turning out saying, we're not going to go in this direction anymore. Our independent friends are coming out saying, I might have given Republicans a shot, but I don't trust them anymore. Now I want to vote for the Democrat. And more Republicans tonight are saying, I'm willing to give Democrats a shot. And you know what? In the state of Florida, we're already seeing the results. Laura mentioned them. We've had 2 special elections in the state of Florida for congressional seats. This was a year ago, before the wave started. And Democratic candidates outperformed by 15 and 16 points. Our state legislative races have moved by 15, 21 points. As she mentioned, the city of Miami just elected a Democratic mayor for the first time in almost 3 decades. And it wasn't even close. It was 19 points. Folks, we're gaining ground in the villages. In the villages! And here's what's happening. Please understand what's happening. We are going to pursue, as Democrats, the opportunity to register more Democratic voters, and we're working hard and we're doing that. But that is not what's allowing us to win elections. You see, more people right now are willing to vote for a Democrat, recognizing you don't have to be a Democrat to vote for a Democrat. And that is what unlocks this coalition in this moment where the nation is broken and divided and people are begging for change. Begging for change. A former Republican U.S. Senator said to me recently, I'm never leaving my party. But I'm going to vote for every Democrat on the ballot this cycle unless you give me a reason not to. And what he was saying was, just ask me to litigate this moment in American history. Ask me to litigate our national identity. Ask me to litigate who we are. Ask me to litigate that we are better in this moment. Because when we do that, we get to build a coalition. I will be a candidate that goes everywhere. I promise you. Some of you have heard me say this. I'm doing what Lawton Childs did. I'm just driving, not walking. We've been on the Alabama border. We've been in Key West, and we've been everywhere in between. But the other piece of this is that each one of us tonight have to do what's within reach. What's within reach. For each one of us, that's something different. For some, it's making sure you're registered to vote. Your vote by mail has been updated. For some, it's standing as a candidate on the ballot. Some, it's just knowing, committing to yourself, you're going to show up to vote. Life is too hard, work is too hard, family demands are too hard, but you commit to voting. For others, it's knowing you're going to grab somebody and take them to the polls and make sure they vote. But we all have to do what's within reach. Many of you have heard this story. I often close with this, and I will share the story tonight. Our 2 kids, I often share this. I'm amazed, by the way, that 2 kids can come from the same womb and be so different. Our 6-year-old Cece's going to be just fine in life. At this rate, she's going to be governor before I am. Our 4-year-old son, Teddy, recently told my wife, Laura, he's never leaving the house. Did. About 3 weeks ago, he said, Mom, I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad. But he meant our house. He means he wants Laura to watch his kids. Whoever this young man finds as his life partner, God bless them, because I don't know how that's going to go. But our young girl, Cece, several months ago, she just started on this refrain of that she doesn't want us to run for governor. She doesn't want me to run for governor. She doesn't. Yeah, it's sweet. It's sweet. You know, it's the perfect chapter for us to run because our kids are out of diapers but not on social media. It's kind of that perfect space. But my daughter's just learned emotional manipulation, and it's her superpower. Teddy's superpower is kicking you in the shins. But Cece starts crying one night. She said, Dad, please don't do this. Don't do this. Don't run for governor. It was heartbreaking, folks. It was heartbreaking. Two things happened in that moment. The first was the realization. Please take me out of this as a candidate. Just think about this in your own life and the life of families you know. The realization that a 6-year-old child tonight looks at politics and says it's ugly, it's mean, and it's vile, and it's nasty. And I don't want my family to have anything to do with it. And it's not worthy of our family's time. A 6-year-old can see that. Because a 6-year-old tonight knows how broken we are. A 6-year-old child knows how broken we are right now. When I was 6, I was looking up at the Carter, Reagan, Anderson presidential election. I didn't know what to think about it, but I looked at it aspirationally, like it was this experiment in American civics. I was curious what my community, what my parents, what my school thought. A 6-year-old child tonight sees it as divisive and ugly and mean. The second thing that happened in that moment is the words that came to me, and I believe it was Providence, the words on my heart. I said, sweetheart, when you have a chance to change the world, you take it. You take it. You take it. That is what this moment requires of all of us, folks. Whatever it is within reach, we must do it. Because the only way out of this is through it. And we're going through it right now. In this moment, when November is coming, we each have to do what's within reach. And what I know is going to happen is on November, when Florida's voters elect a Democratic governor, the rest of the world is going to look at Florida and say, what just happened? And the answer is not going to be that this guy named David Jolly just got elected. Sure, we're going to win the race. But the answer is going to be that Florida's voters, led by the Democratic Party, rooted in the basic values that the economy should work for everyone, government can improve our lives, and everybody's rights should be protected and their dignity celebrated, that Florida's Democratic Party led a new emerging coalition that this nation has not seen. And what happens when we do that? Not only do we change the future of Florida, but for those of you who wake up every day anxious, lamenting the direction of the nation, concerned about the direction this president is taking us, understand what we will have built. We will have built a coalition that does not exist tonight in American politics. We will have built something that the rest of the nation can look at and say, how did they do that? And we will simply show them that we built a coalition rooted in the basic values, that the economy should work for everyone, government can improve our lives, and everybody's rights should be protected. We celebrated the Democratic Party in a way that built a coalition with independents and Republicans. And when we do that, we get to say to our kids and grandkids, we get to say to our neighbors, you get to say to yourself, and I get to say to my little girl, Cece, sweetheart, we just changed the world. That's what this is about in November. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's hear it again. Round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great job. We're going to move into the question and answer. We're going to bring our moderators up, and they are going to continue with the program. But before we do that, I would like to recognize City of North Miami Vice Mayor Cassandra Timothy, who came in late. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to accommodate you. Let's give it up for our